Well, hello, Faith family, and thank you for joining us on the Monday edition of the Daily Connection. It's a time when we get together in the Word, and more importantly, the Word gets into us. So we're transitioning our themes to a theme of service. And so for the next several weeks, we're going to be talking about some key components that we must have in order to serve God faithfully. And we're starting out, first of all, with the idea of in order to serve God, we've got to serve Him courageously. It's going to take a lot of courage in order to carry out the desires and the will that He has for our life. And we're going to focus our attention on Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. We're going to break those down, myself, Brother Aaron, all throughout the week, because I feel like, if God used the word courageous 3 times in those 9 verses, it must mean that gives us a good indicator of how we as a servant can serve God courageously. And of course, we know that Joshua was one of the most courageous servants the Scriptures details for us. So let's start the week off in chapter 1. We're going to look today specifically at verses 1 through 3. Read along with me, please. So after the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you and all the people prepare to cross over the Jordan to the land I am giving the Israelites. I have given you every place where the sole of your foot treads, just as I promised Moses. All right, like I said, in these 9 verses, God's going to use the term be courageous in something of a command sense 3 times. And you say, well, what's going on here that might intimidate? Because, after all, Joshua, along with Caleb, was one of the, were 2 of the 10, 2 of the 12 spies who they came back and they said, the 10 sitting there, they're giving a negative, result. They're talking about how big the people are, how bad the land is. And Joshua and Caleb were like, whoa, hold the phone. Absolutely not. We must certainly go in and take the land. God's promised it to us. So obviously Joshua is very bold. He's very courageous in a sense. Almost comes natural to him, you might want to say. But there are several things here that maybe aren't, just leaping off the page, but also let us know that what he's about to face is pretty difficult. First of all, it says, after the death of Moses. And then verse 2, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, let's not forget, Moses, to the Jew, was the greatest prophet they'd ever had. He performed the greatest miracles, until you come along to the time of Elijah and Elisha, which we're studying Elijah now in our Connect groups. Moses was the pinnacle. In fact, if we go back to the concluding verses of Deuteronomy, we see that at his death, the people mourned for 30 days. And it even says after this, there was no one like Moses. A prophet did not arise that was like Moses, who the Lord knew face to face. So, first of all, Joshua is being asked to fill some big shoes. That can be intimidating. Secondly, Joshua is being commanded to undertake a big circumstance. First of all, he says this, now you and all the people. If it just been now you, Joshua, maybe not a big deal, although I would say there's still some challenges. But certainly, when you include all the people, that just makes this the whole commissioning bigger. Now, we don't know an exact number per se at this point, but we do know that prior to, as they came out of Egypt, we believe the number was probably somewhere in the area of about 2 million. Now, that number probably had been reduced possibly during the wilderness wanderings when those who refused to obey God and trust God suffered the persecution, and of course when they died in the wilderness as God predicted. Hey, regardless of whether it's 2 million, 1 million, you get past 100, you got your hands full. So Joshua is now being commissioned. He's now being tasked with leading a large group of people. And then there's the task itself, cross over the Jordan to the land I'm giving the Israelites. So now they're being commanded, hey, it's time. Cross over and do what you should have done 40 years ago. Cross over and take the land. Of course, Joshua had seen the enemies. He'd seen the cities. He had seen the rugged nature of some of the land. He understood. He knew firsthand what they were going to deal with. And so to put all that together, and this is a very intimidating commission. This is a very intimidating task given to him by God. And yet there was one statement made that could take care of all Joshua's fear. What is it? It's in verse 3. Hey, I have given you every place where the sole of your foot treads, just as I promised Moses. See, we can serve God courageously through faith. Faith that God will continue to be who He has been. Same power, same purpose. same person in terms of his nature and his character. Yeah, we can have faith that God will continue to be faithful to carry out his will. And that's what he's telling Joshua right here. He says, hey, Joshua, even though it seems insurmountable, even though the odds seem stacked against you, even though it's an intimidating circumstance, don't be scared. Be courageous. Serve me faithfully. Why? Because I will keep my promise. And that's it, friends. When we are serving God, we serve God based upon his faithfulness to his promises, as revealed in his word, as revealed in his will in our life, being carried out so faithfully throughout the years. So regardless of what God's calling you to right now, of course, first of all, confirm it is God's call and not just a personal desire. But regardless of what God may be calling you to in this season, you can trust God that he will give you everything you need to carry out his will for your life and his will for all those who will be affected through your obedience. You can trust God. And in that, we can serve courageously. That doesn't mean there's not going to be intimidating circumstances like I just described with Joshua. But what that does mean is this, is that the Spirit that now inhabits you as a born-again believer is greater than any insurmountable obstacle, is greater than any foe, opposition, whatever. And so we can serve God courageously. Now, it's Monday. Fresh start to a fresh work week. The first day was yesterday, Sunday. And we started by celebrating Jesus. You know what? You know what you do today? Continue the same pattern. Celebrate Jesus. And one of the ways we do that is by serving him faithfully. I don't know what that'll look like for you. I don't know your specific context, whether you're retired, whether you're still in the middle of a vocation, whether you're preparing for school as a teacher or as a student. I don't know those circumstances, but I do know this. If God has called you to it, then he will equip you for it, and he will be glorified through it. We must just serve him courageously. And one of the ways we do that, and I always tell us this, is by living sent.